Hello?
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. A little freezing here in New York, but that's fine. Yeah.
It's the opposite here. It's extremely hot.
How hot is it right now? I see you're bearing arms and chest.
Yeah, yeah, and I have on shorts. I would give it maybe like a good 83, 84. But also with Mississippi, it's always humid, so that
Yeah.
intensifies it even further. But yeah, it's pretty hot.
Yeah. No, I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia. Like I get the whole humidity thing. It's like it's
Oh
not even
yeah.
worth it for me to shower in the middle of the day.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
And get out same quality of musty,
Yeah.
Exact same quality.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So are you on the road right now, man?
No, I'm in my car. So today just so happened to be a busy day for me. Yesterday, I attended a art exhibition. Well, I was a part of the art exhibition, and I helped clean up today. And then I'm also doing some community work with the organization and some community folks here. We're cleaning up a building that we're trying to like own as a community.
Oh, cool.
And so yeah, I'm just in my car because there's really not space anywhere else for me to like set up.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Well, hopefully you got air conditioning in the vehicle for the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will be fine.
All right. Got the AC on. All right. If I see you go down at any point, I don't know what I'll do, but just
Okay.
basically I'm here on my end. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll get us started.
Okay.
Could you please state and spell your name for the record to begin with?
Sure. It's Darius Nelson. That's DariusNelson.
Okay. Cool. And what are your preferred pronouns?
My pronouns are they and them.
Okay. Good. Good stuff. All right. So let's just start a little bit with your background. When, where were you born?
Oh, yep. I was born March 18th, 1998. That's a Wednesday, in Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay, all right, very cool. And can you kind of paint a picture of the neighborhood you grew up in?
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I grew up in like two neighborhoods. The first neighborhood is in Southwest Jackson. It's like right down the street from Jackson State University. It was called Southwest Village. It's an apartment. Um, and it's considered like the west side of Jackson, but it's right there on Highway 80. So the Highway 80 and Highway 18 divide up Jackson, but really South and West Jackson. So that I stayed on that side of town for maybe 10 years of my life up until I was 10 or 11. And then when I was in middle school, I moved to South Jackson. I got closer to like the South Jackson area, or the Byram area, which is like South Jackson. And yeah, I grew up, the rest of my life there, and yeah, I went to school in both of those communities. I actually went to multiple schools, but yeah, that's the majority of what happened.
Okay, cool. What was the reason for the move initially?
So the first I lived with my mom and dad when I was at the first neighborhood, so at Southwest Village on the west side. And then my mom and my dad separated. And so he moved out of the house, and then it was just me, my mom, and my sister. My baby, she was a baby at the time when he moved out. And then yeah, we had to, I guess she wanted to find like a better life for us, or like better conditions, because like the Southwest Village apartments was kind of crime ridden, and there was a lot of gun violence happening. And someone that we know personally and that we like love got shot right beside us. So she recognized that it was not really a safe environment, and so she wanted to get us somewhere. And it was also, she wanted us to have like our own rooms, or like like an actual like place where we could like feel comfortable. So in the new spot that we moved into in South Jackson, my sister had her own room, and I did, and my mom did as well. And so yeah, that's what happened.
Okay. Why did you said you changed schools a few times? What was the reason for that?
Oh yes, so my mom worked, I think my mom really wanted the best conditions like for us, period, like most parents do. And she was really interested in having like my better, or like my education also be better. So I was going to like schools on the south side, and I guess, or I never went. I started off not going to schools on the south side. She worked at a place, I think you've pretty heard, you've heard of Target before. She
Yeah.
worked at Target, and the only Target in Jackson is on the north side of Jackson, and so when she would take me to school, she would take me to school on the north side, and I went to school there because usually they have like a district, policy, and you have to go to school where you live. And I lived on the south side, but I went to school on the north side. And as long as she could pick me up because she was working on the north side, then I went there or went to Span Elementary for like maybe 2 years of my life. It was kindergarten through first grade. Um, and then after that, I went to school back on the west side at Clausell. And then I jumped from going to Clausell to Timberline, which is on the south side where I was going to be living and I didn't know. And then went back to Clausell. And so once I went to Clausell the second time, I was in fifth grade. And then after fifth grade, we moved to the south side of Jackson, and that's when I started to go to school at Sodwell for middle school. And they had just built a new school right down the street from where I lived in the south side of Jackson. So then I went to school at Cardoza for middle school, I think for seventh and eighth grade, and then for high school I went to Forest Hill, which is another school right down the street from me. So yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of that's a lot of jumping around. So
Yeah.
what was that experience like changing schools so many times, like changing classes, making new friends? Like what was that like?
You know what? To be honest, at the time I didn't really I wasn't to verbalize if it even had an effect on me or articulate what that would look like. I just knew that like I had been to multiple schools and knew a lot of people like on all across Jackson. I think at the time I probably thought it was cool. And even now I don't like really think anything of it necessarily that it like really impacted like my education or anything like that. Like
Right.
I was really a part of like a tight community as well. I wasn't raised traditionally Christian. I was raised like I don't even know what to call the religion, but I just know that it's like they use the Christian Bible, so the Holy Bible, but it's not really the same teachings. But anyway, that was my community, and I saw those people all the time. So like the school friends, I really didn't hang out with. So I don't think that really had an impact on like my social life, as it was already like pretty conservative already.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So, like, tell me a little bit about your mom. Like, she seemed like quite the incredible, like, lady,
Yeah,
that's hard. It's like if you're working full time and you got kids to take care of after, So, tell me a little bit about her and what your relationship with her is like now.
yeah. I'm really glad that we're like getting into this conversation. I feel like I'm just now being able to articulate what my relationship is with her. So this is like kind of fresh for me. So like, excuse me if I'm like stumbling on words. But yeah, my mom was born in Chicago. She has a twin sister. They're identical twins. But she was raised in Jackson. She has two siblings, two other siblings other than her twin sister. She had an older brother, and then she had the youngest brother. So the twins were the middle children. And then she was raised in the house kind of similar to mine with a similar structure with only one parent. Um, their father was not necessarily that active physically in their life, but he was financially active. So he paid for the house note, he paid the bills in the house, but he just was not present. He lived in Chicago,
Okay.
and he still lives in the Chicago to this day. So that kind of paints the picture of like my maternal familial like background and my relation to like my family on that side of the family. But as far as me and her relationship, um, honestly, when I was younger, I used to think that she hated me. I feel like being queer in a very conservative space is the means for isolation. So a lot of the times where there was misunderstanding or things that were unsaid, I didn't understand it as just a simple misunderstanding. I understood it as hate or disdain or, and, we could argue and say that, maybe that was in a sense, some kind of like, it came from a place from, some kind of disdain or something like that from unresolved issues of her own. But as far as like my little self, I didn't feel like I could be myself, quite honest. I'm just now getting into my early 20s. I'm entering my mid 20s, and I'm just not being able to like express myself in the ways that I was or am, or I really want to. And I know that me and my mom's relationship has a big part to do with that. Not that she did not necessarily condone things, because I feel like she's articulated this to me, that she's always known that I was queer. But what comes with that is also this unspoken rule that like, you should not act in certain ways.
Mm.
And so like I think that was the basis of my relationship with her. And also I've just come to realize that I was kind of touch deprived or touch starved. And I feel like I don't know what the reason behind that was, but I feel like in a sense I did not necessarily feel physical comfort from my mother. So like we don't really, I've never, when I expressed myself to her, or when I did express myself to her, I feel like a burden. And so when I couldn't express myself emotionally and also couldn't be coddled or like comforted physically, I think that there was a big drift in between the two of us, and like a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of like friction between us. And then when my sister came into the picture, well, this happened actually when my sister came into the picture. And so like I was able to have a conversation, like, you know, in my older years, or like in these recent years with my sister, about like that relationship between my mom and my sister recognized that that was like the dynamic, but also that like she took advantage of that dynamic sometimes. And so like, I don't know, I felt like I was both like my sister's, I wouldn't say caretaker, but like emotional caretaker, while
Mm.
also like my sister recognizing that like, oh, I can take advantage of this dynamic, and like if you do something that I don't like, mom will take, you know, your side or my side over you. So that dynamic very much so like put a drift in between me, and I didn't see me being close with either my mom or my sister when I was younger. I did not see that that would happen. Of course, that's completely different now, but yeah, that was what it was like being in a single parent home with two children in Jackson.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have you like talked like when you talked with like your mom, has she sort of brought up any reasoning or like any regrets with how she like handled those kinds of situations when you were younger?
You know what? To be honest, I've not had this conversation with my mom.
No.
I am just now being able to come to these
Yeah.
conclusions, and a lot of them have to do with conversations that I've had with my sister, the community that I've made now, even my father,
Mm.
which that's like a different story entirely. We could get into it, but yeah, I've not been able to articulate it because there's a like a dynamic that, or like a, what am I trying to say? Like I feel that because she was able to take care of me, or I used to feel that because she was able to take care of me and, you know, give me my basic needs like food and shelter, that I should not critique or say anything about the other things that I was missing or
Mm.
that like I didn't receive. And so it never, okay, I'm sorry, I was getting a text message, but it didn't never cross my mind to have the conversation, and let alone like how I would even articulate to her that I, in a sense, was like emotionally neglected while being, you know, raised by her. So it's not really a conversation. It's a conversation I'm looking forward to because I'm in therapy and I'm trying to like, you know, get what I feel, not necessarily out of the way, but get it like under wraps or get an understanding of it.
Yeah.
But no, it's not something that I've really been able to have a conversation with her yet about.
Yeah. No, that's good. It's like at least like having a therapy like be accessible for you to like because like once you say it, it's sort of like, well, that's out, and I don't have to sit with it
Yeah,
anymore. Yeah.
yeah.
So, what's your relationship like with your sister? Like, sort of, you said you guys have had sort of talks about your upbringing. Like, what's your relationship like with her now versus way back when?
Yeah, now we are the best of friends. I actually just hung. She shared that special day with me yesterday. It was my first time being in an art show, and she came, and my mom as well. So me and my sister are probably, I think, the closest. I would say that's one of the closest people to me, like in this moment, because of like how we both share similar experiences, even though they're not exact. We're able to like talk about things that other people have not experienced or don't have an understanding of, and like really break it down and like be very honest and transparent about what we feel and what we need. Like even yesterday we had like a disagreement. The theme for the art show was like denim, and I thought that I had made it very clear to the people that were coming, that I was inviting, that were trying to come to support me, that that was a theme. And she said something along the lines of like, no, you didn't tell me. And I think I have a thing with being called a liar, because like this is not the first time that I've like been triggered. And so when she said no, you didn't, like I immediately got up in arms, and we both like had like a kind of like a heated debate about whether I did or did not, and whether she forgot or, you know, she remembered. Um and yeah, like afterwards, it was like maybe like it wasn't even like a minute later. I was like, I really need to get an understanding of what happened and like where it went left. And we're able to do that like often. Like before, when I was younger, that did not exist. If we had like a heated, and they usually, because we're both pretty passionate and we both are very straightforward with our words and precise. And
Yeah.
so when things would happen, I would say what I felt and she would say what she felt, and we would just be heated for the rest of the day, or maybe for the rest of the week, or however long that would go. It was kind of toxic, very much so, not being able to resolve things or not getting past just an argument or a heated moment. But now that I've been able to like, because I think a lot what happened was I went to college, and I was able to get an understanding of other people and that other people express themselves in other ways, and recognize that like the way that I'm expressing myself may not be the healthiest for me or for other people. And so yeah, like once I went to college, I didn't really talk to my family like that, even though I lived down the street from my family. Um, but like recognizing how to be more emotionally aware, really I feel like plays a big part in how I was able to mend my relationship with my sister. And so yeah, now we're definitely like two peas in a pod, but before I think there was a very, very intense and stressful environment. Not be just because of our dynamic, but because of the way that we had to live essentially without a father, living as a single parent home, um, and then also like there was just a dynamic that existed between like us individually and our mother that she verbalized, and I wasn't able to. Of course, I knew it at the time that like I feel like I'm being treated unfairly because there were certain things that my sister could say or do that I would not ever be able to do that, or I would receive like very harsh punishment. But being able to express that and say and like even recognize and be like, yeah, I was treated unfairly, or like there were expectations that were set for me that were unfair, or that should not have been placed on me or anyone in the home at all. um yeah, it really definitely mended our relationship.
Okay. All right. Wow. Cool. And so you were like around 10 years old when your parents separated, around that age?
No, I was actually maybe like 5.5 or
Oh, okay, five
6.
and a half. Okay, five and a half, six. So after that point, how did your relationship to your dad change, and where are you guys right now in sort of that dynamic?
Hmm. So before because this is actually it's like before my dad left, before my sister was born. There were so many. There was like a apex point, or like a point where a lot of things happened in my life. But before that, I feel like I would say that I thought that I was close to my father. We literally, and this is so weird, like to say out loud, but when I was younger, I slept in the like I slept with my father. Like I was in the bed with my father often, and my mom and my dad did not sleep in the bed together. And so I didn't recognize it as weird. I was just like, oh, my dad actually likes me, or like he wants to give me attention. And now I recognize that that was not really like the healthiest environment to be in, or even if if it was, because I don't think that people who are supposed to be together have to stay in the same rooms. But I just think that my interpretation of what happened is not the same as what actually was going on. Like me perceiving that as him like really loving me, it didn't necessarily mean that because he, left out of the home. And yeah. So at the time, like growing up before he left, I definitely like was very much so attached to him. And then even when he left, um, because he stayed in Jackson when he left, and we would see him. I wouldn't say necessarily often. I would liken our relationship, or the oftenness of how I saw him, was like an older brother, or maybe like an uncle. Um, so yeah, even then, I felt a closeness to him. Maybe because I looked up to him as like maybe the only like the male figure that's supposed to be in my life, and that I'm supposed to be putting myself up to. Um, and yeah, I feel like I definitely experienced a lot of physical abuse from him. A lot more, I would say, than my sister. And when I was younger, I definitely interpreted that as like he wants the best for me, and he really wants to see me, thrive. Of course, now I don't think the same, and I just don't think that that is necessary to even to discipline them or to want the best for them. That is not a necessity in that process. But Yeah, I feel like when I was younger, I definitely thought we were a lot closer. But when I got older, actually this year alone, I had to have a conversation with him because I set boundaries, or I thought I set boundaries with him earlier on, like maybe last year, around how me and my sister navigate him and how he navigates me in that relation. Um, I'm saying like, okay, so my sister has always had an awareness that she has not been comfortable or liked even my father. So their relationship has always been strained since I can remember. And it's because he's been physically abusive and also neglectful. So he would show up whenever, like even when I went to high school my sophomore year, he moved out of Jackson to Arkansas. So there were so many things that happened, like that he, the choices that he made that literally impacted the way that me and my sister work with each other, but also the way that we relate to him. And even in all of that, I still try to see that like he cares and that doesn't take away for if he does care or he doesn't, but like I tried to see a silver lining that didn't exist.
Mm.
Um, and so yeah, I had to when I got older, like as a recent, like I had to realize that like what I experienced was what I experienced, and that um that was not my definition of love. Therefore, it was not love in its totality. And that's something that I really had to come to terms with now, because like I recognize love is both an action and a feeling. But the action part is very important, as like you can't just do things out of love and then expect people to just receive it. Like everybody has different ways that they interpret love, receive love, all of those things. And so I've actually been able to have a conversation with him, because initially I blocked him. he I think the beginning, like January 13th of this year, I blocked him because I told you I set a boundary with him about him speaking to me in regards to my sister. My sister made it very clear that she didn't want to have anything to do with him, and it just made a very awkward dynamic because I was getting closer with him. I mean, with her, while also trying to get closer to him, and he wasn't respecting that, and he really expressed that I that was my duty as his child to basically keep up with my sister. And it struck me, it triggered me, it was so many things, because it made me realize that like I'm having these conversations with him, and I'm being open, I'm telling him things about things I've experienced and things that he's done to me, and it just doesn't seem like he cares, especially if this is like one of the only boundaries that I set with you, and you don't think that it's important and you disregard it often. So I blocked him for like 6 months. I finally had a conversation with him 3 weeks ago, actually,
Oh.
where I've officially expressed my grievances with him in regards to his parenting. Um, and yeah, like that was such a freeing conversation, but I feel like my relationship with him is very much so still strained because of what I've experienced, and also because I don't know how to navigate that relationship without compromising my relationship with my sister.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like as we grow older, we realize like the parents we had in our mind as kids, a wholly different story from who they actually are as like people. And like the more you find out about
Yeah,
what's going
actually.
on in their life, how they were, it like it all starts to make sense, but don't mean it's inexcusable. Don't mean we got to
Yeah.
put up with it, you know?
Right. Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. So
I
you,
think also it's a thing of like I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, go
Were you about to
ahead.
say
No,
something?
continue. No, continue.
Oh, I was just gonna say something real quick. I think that it's also like really recognizing like that your parents are not just a parent, like they're human and they are multiple things at the same time. So it came to me having to literally humanize my parents and
Yeah,
recognize that they are very much so capable of fault, and it doesn't make them like evil people, but it just means that they are capable of being held accountable just as I am.
yeah, 100%. And it's different between and it's different between you and your sister. She has her own stuff to work, and it's hard not to want to also like work that stuff out together as siblings, kind of, because
Yeah.
you're the only people with context of how you both grew up. That's the only person who will truly
Yeah.
understand that dynamic. So yeah, no, that's similar situation
Yeah.
with my sister. But so I just want to go back
Yeah.
for a second to your you mentioned something about your religious upbringing. but that it wasn't like the standard sort of
Mm,
Christian upbringing of the South. Like it was something different. Can you explain that a little bit?
hmm. Yeah. So my parents both were I would say brought into or introduced to like what is it? Like a it's called I'm thinking back to when I was a child. They used to say like this intro in the beginning to like really explain what it is. It was like every time, even if you were like a regular occurring member, it was basically like a non-denominational, non-religious scientific research organization. And so it's called the Institute of Divine Metaphysical Research. And they basically took the Bible, the I don't know what to call it, that Bible. Is it the Hebrew Bible or what, the Bible that
Old
Christians
Testament. Yeah,
traditionally use?
right. Old Testament. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The King James version. They would use that Bible, and basically also use research. And I put quotations there because I actually, I went to college and got a bachelor's in chemistry. So I actually like participated in what research actually was. And in some sense, it was research, but it was really like biased confirmation, to be honest. But yeah, it was they basically like would take like real world events and then also take their understanding of the Bible, and also like certain definitions, real word definitions, and like come to some understanding of what God is. Um, but all of these teachings were like essentially came from a man named Dr. Kinley. He says he had a vision in 1931 about the plan for the universe, and he thought that everybody in the world was, or everybody that's like alive has come into this world as a demon. Let me stop laughing. It's not funny, but I'm saying I'm laughing because I feel like my understanding of love and relationships have stemmed from that understanding that like people exist on this earth to do harm and to cause harm because of a negative or evil spirit or evil entity.
Yeah.
And that really defined my outlook on like humans. And so, oh, and also like my relationship to like punishment too. I gotta mention that. But like, yeah, um, I stayed in there until I went to college. When I went to college and I experienced what college is and all the different people in college, all of that had to be like I had to confront that within myself and really recognize like this may not be for me. And I say that it was a Christian that used the Bible because I feel like even though I didn't have a traditional upbringing, like for instance, it was like a what do I say? I feel like it was very much so where Christianity or like traditional Christians have maybe like what is the word? Like okay, they were dressed traditional Christians or black Christians specifically in the South dressed up very very fancy and whatnot, wear like the big church hats, all of these things. We would wear suits and like formal dresses and call ourselves doctors. So it was very much so like I was trying to compare it to the traditional church where there's like exclusion while also like flamboyancy or like like a lot of like big expression of self. For us it was like elitism and like classism and like
Wow.
um you have to align yourself or present yourself in a way that you will align to like this is what you are, or what am I trying to say, like you need to align yourself in a way that makes you look like you're trying to be something or be what this institution is about. And so yeah, that also was a part of like my upbringing and something that I had to like undo, um or unlearn, or I'm still unlearning.
Mm.
And then also I feel like I'm missing something really, really big. But yeah, I feel like yeah, that was the basis. I went to college and actually it was one class in particular I took my freshman year. It was world history. And he was talking about religions, he was talking about Christianity, and he prefaced the conversation that we had in that day with that he was a Christian, and that he believes in Christianity, but there are contradictions that need to be named. And these are contradictions that I've also recognized. Like a basis of the teaching for the IDMR is that we don't use Jesus and Lord and God to reference the Most High, um, but we use Hebrew terms: Yahweh, Yahshua, Elohim, and then also that the reason being is because Jesus could not have been the name of the Savior if the letter J wasn't even like thought of until like some 1400 years after he died. And
Mm.
that's actually true. So that's why there are a
Wow.
lot of like research aspects of it, that I still take to this day, that like they very much so like hit things to the point, but in other ways like they very much so homophobic and transphobic.
Mm.
And being a queer person, a queer and trans person, in that environment, I definitely felt that that was not something that was attainable to me, let alone anything that I could align myself to even like present myself. Like I felt like I was faking a lot, or I was living my life for other people. So yeah, I had to essentially like divorce myself from that teaching, or those teachings, and in some ways the people. I made it very clear to my mom, because she still attends, and I made it very clear that she can have that belief, and I don't want to judge her, but that I've been harmed in that space, for one, and two, I don't believe it. I don't believe that that is something that I align myself with. And I say that's because I noticed a lot of like religious people, or I say specifically Christians, Black Southern Christians, will talk about God in a very like familial way, as in like this is our God, and not that that is their belief. And so that was a tendency that she would talk about, the teachings, or like, their religion. And I had to make it very clear to her that that was not something that I believed anymore, and that I want her to stop using that language. And it's very possible. How you doing? And yeah, we're still working on that or whatever. But yeah, that is basically like my upbringing in the South. It was still very much so Southern, like very conservative, very much so. What am I trying to say? What is Southern? When I say Southern, I mean like it wasn't separate from Jackson in that I was still in Jackson, but it was very much so a closed off environment. And I didn't really like. I knew exactly where I was going. Like on Mondays, going to school to home. Tuesdays, school to home. Wednesdays, school, home, Bible class, home. The same routine, the same people for the most part. And then also another thing I should mention is it was I was in Jackson, but it was different in the way that I got to experience people from all over the country. So it was founded in California, the IDMR, but
Okay.
they have several branches all throughout the United States, and
Okay.
sometimes often multiple branches in one state. And so oftentimes, and I think this speaks more to like maybe a black tradition that exists, where there is a trust and a leaning into community. So we would go and travel to other branches. And then we would stay with complete strangers, but because they were a part of the IDMR, they opened their home to us and all of their resources that they had available. So I would travel often, as a child, to all across the South. I've been to California, I've been to the Midwest. And I know a lot of people, specifically in the South, specifically in Jackson, have not even left Jackson, let alone Mississippi.
Yeah.
And so that was, a lot different for me. And I didn't even recognize that that was something that was different until I got older. But yeah, that was basically like the basis of my religious upbringing.
Interesting. Okay. So in terms of like IDMR, like is it a very known sort of sect within Jackson? Like what's its relationship to the majority Christian Black culture? Because like it's very different, you know? Is
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
known to be like what's the general opinion of the movement itself outside of those that are practicing the religion, basically?
I find that a lot of people don't know about it, right?
Hmm.
And that's why I say it was a closed up environment, not in the way that many people could not join, because there were plenty of people that have come to that, that specific like Bob or branch, and like, somebody has brought them in, or they maybe heard about it through like a friend or something, or maybe they were like, because it was in a plaza with other businesses, and so maybe like somebody stumbled upon it and like walked in. So it wasn't like closed off in that way.
Okay.
It was just closed off in the way that like we usually knew who was gonna be there.
Right.
And so as far as the relationship to Jackson or to everybody else in the community, I don't think there's people within the community coming to meet under this organization.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. That's so wild. So what is your relationship to spirituality or any sort of religion like now, you know? Because
Hmm.
that was like your upbringing. It's like, it's, it's hard to separate yourself from what you grew up on for years, but,
Yeah.
at the same time didn't really serve you. So yes, bottom line
Right.
question, what's your relationship to spirituality or religion like now?
Yeah. So ooh, I'm actually still trying to define it. Um, I thought I was agnostic, but I don't think that that term serves me because like I do recognize that like power dynamics doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is over me. I just know that I am more than me. I am also my community. I'm also like I'm so many things. And so I say that I don't like align myself with like whatever the beliefs or the definition of agnostic, but I don't think that there is a single entity that is in control over everybody's comings and goings. I feel like maybe spirituality defines more of what I lean to, but even that, I feel like the general definition of what spirituality is now has been, I wouldn't say tainted, but the definition now is not something that I will align myself, with, because it still very much so is it's like Christianity rebranded. So we're not using Jesus, we're not using the Bible, we're not, telling people they're going to hell, but we are saying that your spirit is tainted, and that it reminds me of Christianity in that way, where it's just like, or what I've seen to be Christianity, where
Yeah.
it's just like you need to still do things to present yourself as saved or as spiritually well,
Yeah.
rather than actually being spiritually well or actually doing things that are for you.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I feel like now, especially with me like recognizing that I'm queer and trans, God is definitely for me. If there is a God or many gods or whoever, they're all queer and trans as far as I'm concerned. Um, and yeah, like I also am trying to lean more into connecting with nature because that is very much so a spiritual thing as well. And it's something that I recognized when I was younger for myself, but I didn't know how to articulate it. Like I love being by the water. I love being in nature and hiking. I love just like actually, being around trees. And I say spiritual because like I don't have any other words to describe what that is for me. Like I feel whole and I feel a peace like wash over me. Um, and yeah, I feel like also I'm trying to maybe, I wouldn't say this because I'm still recognizing that even if I find something that maybe I align with, there will be something that I don't necessarily align with, right?
Yeah.
Especially with whoever is, teaching me or like giving me the information, there's going to be something that I may have, I may be up in arms with about. But yeah, I am trying to I'm trying to get an understanding of what my ancestral practices were before colonization, even during colonization, at the beginning, like of chattel slavery, what people had to do to survive and what they tied themselves to. And I recognize that a lot of times I can't separate Black Christianity from Black culture because they're intermingled,
Absolutely.
and not in the way that like Black Christians have to be what they are, or like have to be express themselves in the way that they are, but a lot of what we had to do as like racialized people, especially like enslaved people, was to tie what we already knew to things that were forced onto us. And that's why I was speaking about like how like the Christian or the Black Christian faith in the South is flamboyant in the way that they express themselves, and that's something that I see across um, the South, across different Black people all the time. So I know that that is a part of the culture. But yeah, at the same time, like I know that that is not for me, and I know that it's not necessarily have to be my salvation. Because God doesn't just have to exist in one place. And these certain people who believe this one thing are not going to be the chosen people who are going to be saved from whatever damnation. And then also, because now I'm an abolitionist as well, or I'm a student of abolition, I would say. Um, I recognize that salvation and damnation are very much so the exact same thing as jail and people being protected because they're classed or because they're white or not dark skinned. And so, yeah, I recognize those similar systems in religion that I did in like other social aspects of like my life or like other people's lives. And it's not something that I want to mimic in my interpersonal relationships or in my politics. And so my relationship to religion or to spirituality is that I don't want to be a part of organized religion because there is no one formula that will bring people peace or happiness or rest or ease. So yeah, I very much so am like a person who would take multiple things from multiple religions, from multiple viewpoints, and I try to make sure that I'm open minded while also being willing to be held accountable and hold my own self accountable as well as others.
Right. Okay. And you said something interesting, like you've been looking into like your past a little bit more to discover like some of the more um like the ancestral practices. Like have you unearthed anything like interesting or something that's like caught your attention or that you're like,
Oh, yeah,
wow,
for
it's
sure.
like this really like resonates with me. So like what,
Mm-hmm.
for example, what stuff?
So, and I may misspeak, so I'm not gonna say that I'm like very like knowledgeable of this topic. This is something I'm still trying to unearth as well. And I should say something. I have my door open because you mentioned air conditioning, and I actually don't have air conditioning in my car.
Oh,
But if
good.
you hear, it's cool because I'm the breeze from outside is still coming in. There's like a slight breeze, so if you hear cars coming by or like things like that, that's what that is.
Okay. That's what post-production is for. That's what
Okay.
post-production is for. It's fine.
But no, okay. Yeah, this is so funny that you asked because my work in the art show that I did yesterday spoke to this. So um one of the African tradition religions has a deity, and she has many names, or they have many names. The deity. One of the most commonly known names, or the names that I recognize it as, is Mama Wata, or Mami Wata. It's like Mamiwata, and that is like how Black folks across the diasporas like speak. We don't necessarily speak proper English, as I feel like that is also elitist. But yeah, like the name Mama Wata speaks to fluidity, like in itself, because it's like her name is literally Mother Water. But also like fluidity in practice. What does that look like? It's something that I had to really like think about because fluidity is a part of my identity, a lot of my identity actually. Like I am gender fluid and I am sexually fluid. Like that is something that I've always recognized about myself. Like I looked up to Prince when I was younger. Of course, I don't now anymore. He's an abuser. But like these very fluid practices have been common things in my life. And when I recognized that that was something that already existed in my like a religion or in a practice for Black folks, specifically African folks, I I leaned more into it and tried to read more about it. And I'm using the she and they for their pronouns, but like she is also gender fluid. Like she has taken on many forms and like a lot of folklore and a lot of like uh practices and like talks and teachings about her. And she's also has been depicted as a mermaid.
Hmm.
Um, and so like that theme for me has made me realize that like fluidity is more than just like water, or even just being able to change, but being willing to change and being open to change, and not necessarily that you're comfortable, because change is, it can make you like not comfortable, or it can shake you up, but just recognizing that it's inevitable has been something that I've like really tried to lean into. And I feel like that is a core tenet of that teaching, is that change is inevitable, and that change is powerful, and that change is human. Um, and so yeah, like really, like I've been leaning into what that means as far as like my interpersonal relationships, my politic, um, who I call family, who I call community, what I stand for, what I don't stand for, and like who I like, what teachings I align myself with, and even the people that I align myself with. Like I can't like be assured that they are that they have my, or I don't even care about attention, that they know how to love me or know how to relate to me. And so the tenet or the core principle of change being inevitable has allowed me to be a lot more open to closing and opening relationships, and recognize that it doesn't speak to like nobody has to be evil or good. Like we're all capable of causing harm. We're all capable of bringing joy into somebody's life. So yeah, like that has been something that I've had to like really like unpack, and I try to make sure that I practice a lot in my life.
That's awesome.
I don't know if I answered your question though. What was the question? Can you remind me?
Um, no, just like some of the, I was just asking about some of like the ancestral practices and figures like you had discovered, and like you answered the question like
Okay.
very thoroughly, and then some, which is really great. And on the sub, while we're on the subject of like gender fluidity, you've talked a little bit about how you identify. Could you describe that a little bit more and explain what that means to you personally, how you came to identify and what that means to you?
Yeah. Okay. Well, at first I thought that my gender, like everybody or like a lot of people have been taught, was taught to my genitals. And so I caught my gender fluid, um, or I aligned with gender fluidity initially because I recognized that it wasn't something that was tied to my genitals, and also that like it was something that was in my mind and in my head and in my like how I feel. Um, but now I also recognize that gender is racialized, and that like my blackness is also a part of my gender and how I'm perceived, because it can't be separated and they exist at the same time. And so I feel like for me, my understanding of my gender is that my gender is something that is essentially put onto me, right? And granted, like I can speak to how I express myself, but I can't separate that from how people engage with me and how I get access to things and resources and people. And I say that as a person that I know that I'm on, like, I am desirable. I'm thin. I'm not necessarily dark skinned. Like, there are people who are dark skinned, deeper dark skinned than me. And so, in certain spaces, I'm lighter than, folks. Um, I have smaller features. So there are certain things that I'm recognizing that like within my race that I don't have to experience. And that is something that is speaking to my gender, because like these are things that are I'm literally given or I'm taken away from because of how I'm being perceived. And I feel like that is also the Black experience. It's specifically like a Black femme or a Black female, Black woman experience is being told that you are one thing and then also being removed from that, like at will, whenever. For instance, like Black women, um, while like white women in the United States, like I think this is like Reconstruction. I do not let me not try to throw an air on it. But whenever I think I know it was like a civil war, or like a not civil war, but there was a war happening, maybe like World War I, where like men were going over and they needed women to work. What they didn't recognize was the women had already been working. Black women had been forced to work
Right.
since they had been brought into this to the United States. And so that speaks to a cultural understanding that yes, Black women are women, but only women when we say y'all are. And that is an experience. I don't experience it in the way that Black women have, or people like that, people that identify as Black women. But I do recognize it as something that is a Black experience, is being told that you are one thing and then being removed from it at will, and not having control over what that is or what that looks like, and how violent that is on your, like, the psyche, on my relationship to myself and to other people.
Okay. That's a lot to unpack. Give me a minute. I have a follow-up question here. It's just a lot, it's a lot to unpack because, you're definitely hitting the nail on the head. So, could you make, just for further clarification, could you give me one sort of example you have experienced yourself personally as being sort of, you have these expectations put on you, but then at the same time it's never at your volition or your own like energy to meet those expectations. Am I getting it right, kind of? Like,
Yeah. So for me, for instance, one thing about my sexuality is I identify sexually fluid, but I'm also asexual. Or I'm on the asexual spectrum, I would say. And so, excuse me, I'm sorry, I cut my car. I'm trying to charge my phone. But yeah, I say that because there's a trope that exists within the Black community, specifically for Black man.
oh, hold on. I lost your sound. Oh, hello? I lost you. Oh no. I can't hear you. No. No.
Me now.
Yes, I can hear you now. Got it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, we're back. We're good.
Okay. Hold on. I was plugging my phone up, and I think my Bluetooth connected as well. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I gotcha. You're good.
Okay.
And
Okay. Awesome. Um. Oh, you can still hear me?
I can still hear you. It's kind of muffled, but I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, let me see if I can do something else. Hold on, give me a second here. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. We're good.
Okay. Great. Awesome. Okay. Um, yeah, so we're talking about the expectations of being the Black experience and like how that's tied to gender. So I yeah, I was talking about like my sexuality and like how I'm both sexually fluid and asexual. And for me, that just means that oh, this is annoying.
Yeah, I was about to say, can we? Yeah, there we go.
Okay, yeah. That just means that I experience an attraction, and I say maybe not sexual necessarily because it doesn't lead me to want to have sex. The attractions that I experience, I've never like envisioned myself, or I don't often envision myself wanting to have sex with people. I envision myself wanting to be intimate with people and maybe have a closeness, um, and maybe even physically intimate and like touching, but never anything that necessarily requires sex.
Mhm.
But the contradiction that exists is that I'm hypersexual and that I'm always wanting to have sex with people, and I always want to have sex. A masculine thing is that as well. Like you always want to have sex, but being Black and masculine both, it makes it like something entirely different. To where you're like this, you're perceived as like a caricature in a
Yeah.
sense. And so I yeah, I feel like for me having to navigate that is very much so like a contradiction, and it makes me have to I have to be very clear about what I am and what I want, and not because I need to say that to other people and other people need to know that, but because like the world tells me otherwise, and it won't allow me to be what I actually want to be. And that's just one way. I really could go all day, but like I feel like that is a really really big thing because like I've experienced other people, and that's so it's interesting because I've aligned myself with people who have been hypersexualized and are also hypersexual, and like have had multiple sex partners. And it's not like I'm not. This is by no means any judgment, but recognizing that they've experienced something maybe traumatic even um that did not allow them to be themselves authentically and like put a title and a label on them that they didn't really have control over if they could be that or not. They just had to be it.
Right.
And so yeah, that is very much so what I'm talking about when I speak to like how first of all gender is racialized and how being black is a gender in itself, and it's something that warps the perception of a person and expectations are placed onto them without their consent.
Yeah. And I mean, probably get it from more than one front. You have like the expectations that come with like from an outside community, let's say like white community, and then you also have expectations that come from within the black community as well, if my understanding is that is correct, you know,
Yeah, that's correct. You're right. Yeah.
and what you should be and how you should be acting and like everything. It's one more. I did another interview like before this of interviewing a black bisexual gal, and she was like, even there's like even in like the LGBTQ black community, there's like different expectations that we will be put on, let's say like a bisexual woman or a gay woman versus like a gay man or like a gender fluid like a black man. You know what I mean? So even that
Mhm.
like that's pretty. I mean, would you like agree with that sort of understanding?
Yeah. Oh,
And
for sure. Absolutely. I feel like as it regards sexuality, a lot of people, if it's not straight, then it is something monstrous. And it's monstrous in its own ways. Like just as there are ghouls and vampires and werewolves, it's the same thing with how sexuality as a black person is perceived. Um, Even to where people hear me say that I don't really tell many people that I'm ace, but when I say that, the understanding is that I am automatically sex repulsed. And that is the case for people as well, but it is not the case for me necessarily. But also it's just unfathomable for folks, or unfathomable, I say, for folks to understand a relationship outside of sex to other folks because of how capitalism, I feel like, has made us believe that the ultimate relationship involves sex, the ultimate relation to another person involves sex, and involves a hierarchy of relationships where you're only being catered to your partner, your sex partner. There's just so many things that have been added onto that. And so if that is not aligned to straightness, then it's monstrous. And it's something that is an anomaly.
yeah.
And so yeah, I agree for sure.
Alrighty. That's so freaking interesting. Okay. So if we could, I mean, I want to be as like respectful as possible.
Mhm.
But would you be open to talking about your, I don't know, we call it like a coming out experience because it sounds like you went through multiple phases. It's like it's a continuum of like
Yeah,
sort of discovery of identity, really.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I guess if we want to call it that, we won't call it like the moment you came, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right? That
yeah.
that sort of like cliched thing. How what no. So I guess if we just like go through your process of, shall we say, coming to your identity, both sexual, gender, and otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. So I I officially came out, or I wouldn't even say officially. The first time I came out, like to anyone, was to my sister, and a lot of people in my life have always known that like I'm different and that there was a possibility that I was queer, but it was just like passed off. Even when I was younger, a lot of people asked me, and often adults would ask me like, have you been thinking about girls? Do you have a girlfriend? I'm just like, no, I'm focused on my school. I'm not concerned about a girlfriend. They can come later. That's me being in denial. Like, you don't want a girlfriend at all. And you're not a boy, so there's just so many things in that. But um, yeah, when I told my sister, it she was shocked, maybe because we don't really talk about queerness at all, but not because it was me. Like she was just like, well, that makes sense. But then she was just like, so, and she like you see it in her mind, like it's an unraveling and so many things connecting. She was just like, so when this happened, you mean you was? And I was just like, yeah, that's I was not straight at all, never been. And she's just like, okay. And so my sister, and this is also another reason why we're really really close, is because she is making it her mission to understand me and to like meet me where I'm at, and also like be willing to be corrected. And so she has like she's tried to correct her language, or not try, she does correct her language and other people about my pronouns, about like if like I'm her sibling and not her brother. Like even sometimes I will like unconsciously say like, because I'm your brother, and she's just like, no, you're my sibling. And so like she has like been a really big part of that, but is a contradiction as well, because she also outed me to my father. It was accidentally. She didn't really mean to, but it still happened, right? And it just so happened that he was not necessarily like, I've not experienced, thankfully, I'm around people who are not necessarily um overtly violent to queer and trans people. Um, but yeah, he said that he knew, and he was fine with it. And at the time I was happy that like, oh, he accepts me. But then I had to think and just be like, so that means that you have always been aware, or you've been aware for a longer time than I have, and had this language and not catered to my needs. And granted, that could be something where you didn't know how to, but it also seems like there was an unwillingness to be that unless I came out to you. And that is unacceptable, because this is an environment that is not, I don't feel safe. There's literally the main reason why I have not told anyone, is because I didn't feel safe. So for you to say that you were aware, and both of my parents actually said that verbatim, that I always knew. And it infuriated me later on when I like recognized what that meant. But yeah, I've not come out to my mom or my dad about being trans. I've told them that I'm queer, or gay, because that's what they understand it to be. But yeah, like you said, it's a continuing thing. It's something I'm actually like. I feel like I change labels, especially now that I've like come out for real. I changed labels so many times, but that goes back into the fluidity thing and like the change being inevitable. It's not something that I recognize that I need to have one label, or that a label will fit me all the time or all of my lives. It's something that will constantly change, because that is the nature of humans, and that is the nature of gender, I would argue. But yeah, I am still in that process. I honestly genuinely don't know that I will come out to my parents as trans. I just feel like that is a whole other ballpark that they are not ready for, or maybe not. I wouldn't speak to their readiness. I would say that I'm not ready for, because it comes with so much, and it requires like, it with that knowledge, right? If I tell them that I'm trans, it will also mean that they will have to change the way that they relate to me, and that will require a lot more than just simply using my right pronouns, if they can even accomplish that, right? It will require them to undo how they see me entirely. And so yeah, it's just not something that I'm ready for. But yeah, that is how that has looked throughout my life. I've come since that relationship, since that conversation with my dad. I came out to my mom shortly after, and like majority of the close family members on my paternal side of the family. I come out to a lot of friends, and honestly, we say come. You were saying that come out, like maybe not be the language, and I'm still using it, but I feel like for me, sometimes I don't even tell people. Like I just start to express myself in different ways, and you can pick up the straws as you go, or pick up the chips wherever they land. But a lot of times I find that I don't prioritize just telling people what I am, unless I recognize that they are also queer and trans, and they can relate in some way. So yeah, that is what that looks like. Not really catering to straight people, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you know, I no, it's definitely like once you take on once like the how shall we say it, cat's out the bag, especially when it comes to family members, it's like, okay, now I have to be ready for like the rigmarole of however long this is gonna take for me to
Yeah,
get comfortable with their potential discomfort. Yeah, their
yeah,
potential discomfort. It's yes,
exactly.
I could imagine it to be quite exhaustive, quite exhaustive
Yeah,
indeed. Yeah.
yeah.
But as like you were saying, you know, you feel the most comfortable, as we will call the term in quotation coming out, to fellow members of the community who would get the experience and the language and all of that. So
Mhm.
could you talk a little bit about like tapping into like you know queer life or just Black LGBTQ life in Jackson? And was that a slow process or was that something that was like readily accessible? You know, you found a community right away and just like you know, no issues, never look back.
Yeah. So I feel like um I am very much so a privileged queer and trans person, Black trans person in Mississippi, as I, especially now, I have the ability to be perceived as a man and like just fly under the radar for one. And then two, like I've also am a person that had access to free like education. So I don't have to worry about debt. And I also like had access to like a big, like vast network of people. And that also included queer and trans people. Now, at the time when I was in college, I didn't know, that so many people were queer and trans and Black and like right next to me. But once I came out, or once I not came out, once I graduated in 2020, and that was literally the beginning of the pandemic. And another point, another really, really big point where so many things happened for me. Um, I I started to develop more language for my politic and become very interested in any movement or organizing or anything, if possible, in Mississippi or in Jackson in general. And so I one of my good friends that I like went to high school with, she told me about an organization called Black Youth Project 100. It's a member led or membership led organization full of or that organizes through a Black queer feminist lens, and it's full of like Black queer trans youth, and it's ran by them as well. And so yeah, I got introduced to them, and that was really like that. I say that once was or something that I was comfortable calling my political home. We can get into that later, but for the time being, like that was my political home, and I built a lot of my politics around it because of the aspect of recognizing that people are multiple things at one time, and that saying that Black Lives Matter has a strange tinge of Black straight lives matter or Black cis lives matter and not like all Black lives. And so yeah, it gave me that language, and I was definitely able to find through that organization a lot of Black queer and trans people, specifically in the South. One, because it's so interesting. uh the South is home to a lot of Black queer people in the United States. Like we're concentrated in the South, whether people like believe it or not. But yeah, the community has always been here, and like as I continue, like because I told you I joined the organization like 2020. I've met so many Black queer trans people in Jackson alone. And like I've been able to have the opportunity to go and travel and well, in Mississippi and see other Black queer trans folks and like become very connected and like even call these people family.
Mm.
Um, and so I say that I'm privileged because like I recognize that there are right now while we're talking Black queer trans folks who don't have access to that and are isolated because that is like what Blackness is, and that is what Black transness is isolation. I'm
Mm.
not saying that like that is what people have to take on, but it is a common experience amongst Black trans and queer people that we are often isolated and not able to be authentic. And so yeah. I feel like I say that I'm privileged because I definitely have access to a lot of like Black queer trans folks, and yeah, I definitely I was able to find it because of how I was like my conditions and what I aligned myself with, and also what I was able to align myself with, the resources that I already had access to, and that were available to me. And so yeah, in general though, because I'm saying this that I've had access to this network, but this network is also not readily accessible to other folks
Hmm.
because of stigma, because of homophobia and transphobia, because we are in the South, and this is like I feel like the South has the whole fascist, anti-black like culture down pack, like even to the point where like in our everyday interaction, we're referring to people by their genitals with ma'am and sir. Um, yeah, it's just it's we have it perfected, and like so, it would make sense that Black trans people down here, Black queer people down here, don't feel safe. Um, but yeah, that is like my relationship to that community now, at least.
Right, right. But it's like you made a note of saying like it happened like after you left school, which I think it's so interesting because as you were bringing up that isolationism, that's one thing I like heard from a lot of folks is who also attended Jackson State University. A lot of the
Mm,
time you'd be right next to like, right next to queer folks and wouldn't even know,
yes. Oh
you
my
know?
gosh, I have so many stories. Literally, when I graduated, I was very active like my junior and senior year in organizations, and so I met a lot of people at Jackson State. Um, and when I graduated, like I came out simultaneously, or like that's when like I was becoming more comfortable in my expression and all of those things that come with that. Um, but I didn't see other queer and trans people like from Jackson State or like even like necessarily like in my immediate community. Like they may be at a different school or they maybe went to like, yeah, they just weren't in my immediate community, I would say. But when I came out and then when like as time persisted, as soon as people would graduate from Jackson State, literally people would come out. And it was such a phenomenon to me that was both liberating to see that yes, I was around a lot of queer and trans people, like even while I was at Jackson State, but also very sad because I recognize that they have the exact same experience that they didn't feel safe to be themselves authentically at Jackson State, or even that speaks to even like the bigger space of Jackson. And some of these people are not from Jackson, some of these people are from Jackson, but like yeah, I know like now a lot of Black queer and trans folks like that I met at Jackson State, and I didn't even know that they were until like after we left. But
Hmm.
yeah.
What do you, it's like you talked a little bit about the sort of underlying or prevailing like ideology that keeps people, let's say, from like fully participating in their own identities even when they know it, like in terms of college. Like what do you think that was about at Jackson State, like in particular? Because I've heard this sort of scenario like before, which is
Mm,
interesting to me because like college is like, the gun ho time where everybody's like finding themselves kind of, but
right. Yeah.
not really exercising that fully. Like, what do you think that was about? Not feeling,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, for sure. I know it was about the fact that although Jackson State is a HBCU, like a historically Black college or university, it is still very much so like an institution within the United States, and it's a part of the education system. And that if we know that um, like interpersonal things don't exist in a vacuum, like they speak to the bigger issue and to systemic things, then that is also true of Jackson State, and that it is a white institution, and that a lot of times you have to align yourself to the binary in order to, or into classism, into elitism, and into a whole bunch of transphobia. You have to align yourself with things that do not allow you to be authentically yourself. And that is literally a common experience. When I my junior and senior year, I told you I got more active, but I was joining organizations like the NAACP and Student Government Association, and in theory, right, these are supposed to be organizations that are for liberation, or for advocacy and like helping people. get their needs met. But these are also the same organizations where I've faced violence, not necessarily someone saying something to me, but how I'm supposed to be presenting myself. Simple as that. Like a lot of times there was like this belief that we need to be business professional. And you would think like, oh yeah, of course, like that is a necessity, but like business professional comes with gender roles. Business professional comes with like white supremacy and like me not being able to have like something as simple as locks because I locked my hair after I graduated. And I had a low cut, like I had a really low cut in the line and all that stuff. So like a lot of these things were anti-black in nature and did not allow a lot of black folks to be black or be black in their authentic or like their genuine selves. And so yeah, I think that Jackson State, like I said, it is very much so still a white institution, even though it is majority black people that go there, because of the fact that it is essentially a place that hoards knowledge. And wherever you see the hoarding of resources is where you will also see violence um, in multiple ways. And so, yeah, I think that is very much so why a lot of people experience those things because maybe they thought that it was and I say that knowing that I've had access to like a resource that a lot of people don't. So Jackson State was still a resource, but it also was still a place of violence for me. I got a big network from there. I've met so many people and still are meeting people that like are useful for me and vice versa. But yeah, while I was there, I just was not able to be who I wanted to be or who I thought like even like I told you I graduated with my bachelor's in chemistry. I'm not even using that degree. Like those are expectations that were placed onto me from my family members, from professors that I excelled academically in math and science, in which I did and like I understood it, but like I also was very much so creative. I've always been actually like since I could remember. I've always doodled and draw things and had very expressive, creative like conversations. Like I've always been that way. Even when I was in like grade school, I took like AP art. Like I was like very much so an artist, but recognized that the world does not treat art or artists with respect, and I also recognized how people related to me even being an artist or wanting to like align myself with that. And I quickly made an adjustment and said that I wanted to be a chemist, or something in the STEM field or whatever. So um, yeah, even violence in that way is just like people are just not literally able to be their authentic selves and whatever that means.
Yeah, just a wholehearted repression sounds like. Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly. But that's so now that you bring up like your relationship to art, like let's talk about that because I want to hear about
Yeah.
like the exhibition you just had and like what that was themed around and like Mama Wata and denim and all of that.
Yeah.
So when did like hold on, I roll out the question. So yeah, tell me a little bit about your art. When because you said you always had a proclivity for like the artistic. Um, but where do you draw your inspiration from now, and what are you making, and how is, and as an artist, like, how does that fit into your overall identity?
Yeah. So, for one, I would call myself a multidisciplinary artist as I don't like really confine myself to one type of art. I love all kinds of art, visual, um, love different mediums within the visual field. I also love music. I love making music. I love to sing. I love dancing. I love acting. I love film. There are so many different art mediums and disciplines that I love. And so I can speak to like right now, currently,
Oh,
uh, maybe since high school. Oh, can you hear me?
I lost the last thing you said, but I can hear you now. Hold on.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say so since high school, um, I've been like a mixed media type of visual artist, and so and just in case like you're not aware of like what mixed media is, it's just like using so instead of like people who are painters who would use like maybe acrylic paint or just watercolors, I often use like paint, I use fabric, I use pen, all in one piece. And so like I draw inspiration from different like mediums or different mediums. So yeah, with that though, I feel like my art has like with that recognition that is like my how I relate to art. I recognize that like I don't have to be one thing, and like it goes back into the whole thing of fluidity. Um, and so that even is about how I express myself now, or not even now. I feel like I've always, in some sense, like been a political kind of artist.
Hmm.
And I say that not necessarily meaning that like I speak about maybe current world things or like talk about politicians or even talk about policies, but like my expression of myself is a politic. And so like I will often talk about things that I've experienced or things that I see that are contradictions and like make a statement out of them. Like for instance, when I was in high school, we had little trading cards that my teacher introduced us and like to how to making or into making. And like I excelled in that. Like it was something that I just loved doing. You would sand down regular like playing cards, paint it, and then add whatever you want on there. And so I would often talk about like the media and how the media is like steeped in artificial things or things that are not necessarily like the truth. I spoke to like being authentic within oneself and also like the contradiction of that and also having to be safe like and having to like present yourself in a way that may not be authentic and that duality like those are things that I was expressing myself like or I was expressing that in high school and then like I went through a period in college where I was just trying to align myself to what I was supposed to be quote unquote or the expectation that was placed onto me and I in a sense like killed that side of myself or really repressed it like very violently I would say because like I was not really using a lot of color in my, or yeah, I wasn't using a lot of color in my like wardrobe, and like I would just like jeans and a shirt. It wasn't anything really like expressive. Versus now, like I will wear a heel, a skirt. I will wear whatever I want. And so yeah, now like as far as the art that I did on yesterday, it was about the Jacksonian relationship to water. And so, as you know, like the water crisis has occurred in Jackson, but it's always been a thing. And so, I wanted to talk about, or I wanted to express that, and that this is not something that is new, and what that looks like for Jacksonians truly. And so, I'll speak more to that. My one of my friends that is actually in Black Youth Project with me, we right when the water crisis happened, literally maybe like a couple of days afterwards, we discovered a trail in Belhaven, and Belhaven is a part of like um, a greater area, like a midtown downtown area in Jackson that is also being gentrified, or like with the term Belhaven, I would even say that like it started being gentrified once Belhaven became an official community. But like now you definitely see that it is completely different than the way that the other parts of Jackson are structured and like developed. Um, and also you can see with the demographic, there are a lot of white people, there are a lot of classed people in the downtown and midtown areas. And so we discovered the trail in Belhaven, and it was amazing because we had always been looking for a trail in Jackson. Like we literally had a conversation like a couple months before about how we wanted to get back into walking, but the only place that we could go to was in South Jackson. And it was a drive for me, and it was also a drive for my friend. And also, this is an interesting fact. That friend also went to Jackson State. Uh, but yeah, we found the trail in Belhaven, and we were walking it. And they also mentioned that the trail went to the Pearl River. Now this blew my mind because when I was younger, my dad would always take me and my sister to the Boss, oh shit, the Ross Barnett Reservoir, and that's all the way in like freaking like Ridgeland, Madison almost, if not already Madison. So we would take a good like maybe 20-30 minute drive to get there, but we would be by the water and we would always, have fun out there. And so imagine me, a 24-year-old, recognizing like always living in Jackson, being in Jackson all my life, recognizing that we could definitely have and then also to recognize that not only that I could have had access to water, but there's a beach in Jackson that is like it was beyond me because I'm just like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, what? And so I'm thinking like, okay, maybe I'm the only one who don't know this knowledge, or maybe me and my friend are just two people who just don't know this. But I kept asking people. I would ask my family members. I would ask my friends, and they all like looked at me like in disbelief. And to this day, people were just like, no, like that, that doesn't exist. I took a video. We recently found the beach. We were able to get there. But like it wasn't until then that people like really recognized that, oh, there is a beach in Jackson, and it broke my heart
Mhm.
because it's like a lot of people are just, like in the national news are just now getting wind that we don't have access to water, but that's always been the case. But also on top of that, we have been removed from water in multiple ways. We've been removed from water recreationally as well. And it's been gatekept and it's still being gatekept. And to the point where actually there is this thing in Jackson that's happening since the water crisis happened. There's an organization called Poor People's Campaign, and they brought one of their like national members or someone from whoever. He came down and he like tries to host Moral Mondays, um, and he has people within the community speak on their experiences. And so I went there and spoke to my experience, and was basically saying that like I was asking the crowd, and these are full of Jacksonian folks, asking them, did y'all know that there was a trail in Belhaven that led to the Pearl River? I asked people to raise their hands because like it's one thing to say that and like get feedback, but I wanted to actually see it. Do you know no black person? And there were like maybe like a sprinkles of like white people in the crowd. No black person in that crowd raised their hand, and it was like shocking. But it confirmed something for me that like we
Mhm.
are experiencing violence on multiple ends, on multiple fronts. Um, and like what that looks like being a Jacksonian and what is your relationship to water? And even just the theme of like fluidity, like that was something like water literally became because I'm aligning myself with fluidity, like water is actually something that is a, a very core tenant in my life. Not even just that I need it to survive, but that is how I look at my life as fluid. That is how I want to be. Like I want to be as fluid as possible. Um, and how removing folks from water is violent. Removing folks from water, like just to drink, is violent. But removing folks from water where there's a city where water actually goes through it, and at no point is there a way to access it except for the gate kept trail. And then it's even not a defined path through the Belhaven Trail because the trail goes from the museum, the two Mississippi museums, to I think it goes all the way to the water treatment plant, the O.B. Curtis. No, it's two water treatment plants in Jackson. It's the one that didn't crash. It's the other one. But even off of that trail, there is no one defined path that goes to the Pearl River.
Wow.
And so when we finally found it, it was bittersweet because it's like, wow, I'm finally here, but like there are so many people who don't know about this that are in Jackson and that probably would never know about it. And so yeah, my piece, my art piece that I put into the art exhibition was about that. And I basically spoke to privatization and what it actually was. I depicted children or black folks or people who are like have like African features and like darker skin. I used magazines and cut their faces out, and then I took construction paper in different hues or tints of blue, and I made afros, and I like used a blue ink pen to like make texturize their hair and make the coils and curls in their hair. Um, and I had I did two pieces. My first piece was that I had two hands coming from both sides of the canvas, like coming from like nowhere seemingly, and extending themselves to almost touch each other but go past each other. And in the middle of them, there's this word privatization. And on either side of both of the arms, there was a couple of different people with afros, and I put that at Jackson, Mississippi. And on the other side, there was I was a piece of fabric that resembled like water to me. It was like different hues of blue, and it also like existed in like a gradient form from like light to dark, and it had like speckles of white on it. I cut the tops of it and made like waves, and that was the water. And then I spoke to like how Mama Watts is something that I'm trying to explore, like what that looks like for me. I had a reoccurring, like the blue afro was a reoccurring theme for me, but also Mama Wata, and that it's not just that she's a deity, but she's also water in itself. And not even just the Pearl River. Like now, the Mississippi River is drying up. We don't have access to just water, drinking water anyway. So it was like it had multiple like meanings for me. And so yeah, I had that, and I also on either hands, on one hand it was the government, and I had government, legislature, city council, and the governor, like those words. I had the government on the cuffs because it was like two hands that they looked like they were coming from like suit jackets. So yeah, and then I had them coming out of like gears, so to resemble that they are mechanisms. One was the government, the other was patriarch, and I had patriarch, um, abuse, power, and insecurity on the other. And yeah, like I that was how I depicted my relationship, or like as a Jacksonian, my relationship to water, and I would say the entire Jacksonian relationship to water. And then on the other one that I did, I wanted what I was going for was like a story or like a three-part story.
Yeah.
But at the last minute, I recognized that I could express myself or say what I needed to say in the two, in two like pieces. And so the other piece was that fluidity, literally on the thing I have, fluidity bring freedom. And so there is a head cutout of uh, what I would depict as Mama Wata, but her hair is not made of blue construction paper and like coiled. It's made of actual, like I cut out different. I looked through different magazines and saw water, like literally just water. Somebody maybe standing in water, or like just somebody like took a picture of some water, and I cut them out and made them into an afro, or made like I glued them together and then cut out the cutouts into the shape of an afro and put that on her head, and then had her above the fabric, the same fabric that I put on the other one that resembled water for me. And I had that, like it's like she's looking over the water. Um, and she's like she's actually, she could really say that she's like the sun or like the moon, but she's like right on top of the waterfront, and she's looking out onto the ocean, and there are mermaids with heads, like black people's heads with the same afros, swimming. And so yeah, that was how I did what I did.
That's pretty sick. Like I want to see it. Like it's like you're describing like great visuals, but like, oh God, I want to see that. I want to see a real band. Like if I find you on Instagram after this, I'm gonna be like, send it, please send it through, you know?
Yeah, sure, yeah, okay.
That sounds super, super cool though. Like to take the concept of like everything like together, like you're speaking to so many different experiences all at once. At the same time, like you're saying, there could be multiple forms of something, and like there's multiple angles to like one experience of like not having access to like just an experience of itself, like being close to water, and then
Yeah.
bring in like the ancestral heritage there. Ah, love it. But yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, that's pretty cool. That's very, very cool. But speaking of, while we're on the tangent of like kind of sort of getting to the whole like destructuring that whole the classification systems, if you will. Um,
Mhm.
how do you feel wait, okay, wait, 1 second. Okay, what has your experience kind of been like interacting with the white LGBTQ community in Jackson? Because from my understanding, they're two separate and distinct communities.
Yeah,
Um,
you're very right. Yeah.
right. So what's been
Um,
your experience with that?
okay, so I currently work as an organizer with Planned Parenthood. I started in November of last year. And so just that alone, I really feel like that is my introduction into the white LGBT community, as my team, or the team that I work with, is majority black, but there was one white person, and she was queer herself, where she is queer herself. But yeah, I think for the most, no, not all of us are queer. But anyway, my record, like being working for Planned Parenthood in Mississippi is enough experience to recognize that they're like, oh, there is a difference in how black queer people are treated versus white queer people. There's a difference between how Mississippi is treated versus the rest of the world. So I work for Planned Parenthood, I said, and I work for Planned Parenthood Southeast. And Planned Parenthood Southeast is an affiliate of Planned Parenthood, the Federation of America. And so like there's a national organization, of course, and then there's like, the local organizations. And Planned Parenthood Southeast covers Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama. So working for Mississippi, especially around reproductive rights, has been a thing in itself, in that the entire case of Roe v. Wade was overturned with the case in Jackson. And back to this whole thing where so many things are like literally centering one thing. Um, Seeing how the rest of just my affiliate, not even the federation, but just the affiliate, how they regard our work, because the work that we do is different than the other states just within the affiliate. Like we have to have different language. We do deep canvassing. We only had one abortion clinic in Jackson, in Mississippi, but it was only in Jackson. And so like our work looked completely different than the rest of the state, let alone, I mean, than the rest of the nation, let alone just our affiliate. So we will often be doing.
Well,
Can you hear me now?
yep, I can hear you. Yep.
Okay. We were often doing more work, I would say, more actual physical work than the other states. And seeing that, because the other states had white or majority white teams, or I would say majority white as if there was a team, but there was just like one person, maybe two people, but they were both white. Um, and yeah, like our team full of black people are doing so much work, but we never got any attention or never got any like congrats or any kind of props, nothing. It was just that was the work that needed to be done, and we did it. And that literally is a common experience amongst like my experience as a black queer person organizing in Jackson. Is that like we have to do the work regardless. Like even if we get access to resources, we have to make a way out of no way all the time. Um, and so that I'm speak to that experience, but also while I was table at like pride events, and one particular pride event, it made me recognize like that there was actually a difference in those two communities. Like you said, it was a Black pride event, um, and I had never been to any pride event before then, so it was like my first experience with as a pride event. And I had never in my life ever seen so many black queer people in one space. And it was in a park, the Fondren Park, actually. And so it was so many, like it looked like it was maybe like the fair, or it looked like it was like I can't think of like a really big social gathering or a big social event, but there was just so many black people out there who I assume were all queer, or at least like were okay with queerness or and transness. Um, but then like going to white, like tabling at white pride events in Jackson, it is a different demographic entirely. Um, Even to the point where like at the Black Pride event, they're reaching out to, of course, black organizations, but like you can see that white organizations are only aligning themselves with people who take their organizations and their missions to do things that are serving the white organization.
Okay.
For instance, like what is it, Capital City Pride? They don't necessarily work with black, and sometimes they fund things, but they don't show up at events. They don't like really like they're not really like vocally present. And so that experience is like it's so odd to be in a space, to be in a place. Jackson is like 80 is rough, 80% black, and that's a very rough estimate. So I've gone throughout my life only interacting majority, like I can count on like both of my hands white people that like I have interpersonal relationships with. And so to be in a space or to be in a place where white people, or specifically white queer people, are in a sense gatekeeping resources is like bonkers. It's really wild.
Wow.
But yeah, that is literally it's very much so a difference, and very much so like, and I speak to like how like the South has like the whole like respectability things like down packed, but like even like, and I say like the difference between overt and covert racism, but like both are very violent and have the same impact on people, because like yeah, how can you show up in a space that is majority black and only still have only white people show up to your event? Like, first, to be honest, where are these white people coming from? majority community that's already here. So yeah, it is very much so different. It's very weird, actually, but
Oh,
it's something that
you're
you
kind of
don't
breaking up.
even recognize is an issue until you are put in a place where you see a very stark difference in audience and who gets access to
Hold on, you just I just lost you, and you're saying something really important. I want to make sure I get it for the record.
resources and who gets to um organization or who gets to like have authenticity. Like, you hear me though?
I lost you a little
Hello?
bit
Oh
there.
no, what's going on?
Hi, hi. I lost you just a tiny bit. Like, if we just rewind maybe the last like 10, 20 seconds of speech, just because I did lose you a tad there. You kept going in and out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you hear me though? Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, I am. There's a little bit of a lag, but it's better. It's a little better.
Okay. I'm think there's like a difference in my signal, but let me know if you cannot hear me again, and I can repeat myself.
Okay, yeah, let's just have a like wind it all back. The last thing I heard was gatekeeping resources. So go back to that one.
Yeah, yeah. So that was basically what I was gonna end with was is that you are not able to see that there is even like racism that exists. Because if you're in a majority black place, the only people that you interact with black people, then you, in a sense, you would equate that to be, oh, no racism exists here.
Mhm.
But that's not how racism operates, or that's not the only function that racism operates is overtly, or that some white person is like saying something racist to you. It's also in who gets like the Capital City Pride gets to be an established queer organization within Mississippi that is like a lot of people know about, that gets access to resources, are constantly getting grants, are constantly getting financial support, while the black organizations don't get any support virtually and have to pool resources within each other. And then also sometimes align themselves to the white organizations, offer the white organizations to be like, we'll give you this much if you do this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is very much so. You can see that there is a difference in how um white people, but specifically white queer people, are treated versus, and then also, well, versus black queer people. But also, I feel like white queer people get to be queer. Like black queer people, like are seen as like black first and only,
Oh, I lost you again.
even
I lost you.
amongst other black people. Like I had a conversation recently with like it was like a space. Hold on. I want to see if I can call instead.
Well,
Would
I
you be
kind of
comfortable with me calling instead of like being on video?
well the thing is it's on Zoom because it needs to be recorded. Um,
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
yeah, I'm
Okay. I
recording
just don't want
audio.
to keep having to do this and like, repeat. But I don't mind. I'm not opposed to it. So I definitely will repeat. Um,
If you
dang,
don't
what was I saying though?
if you don't mind, I don't mind. It's yeah, the only reason is like yeah, I have to for like archival purposes, like yeah, I gotta be on Zoom. Yeah.
No, that's cool. That's fine. Um, but yeah, I think that very much so uh, uh, there is a obvious uh, obvious differentiation in who gets to be queer, because like being black, even, oh, that's what I was saying. So there was a space that was catered towards black cis men and black queer people, and like basically like being able to iron out our differences.
Okay, you keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You keep going out. Shoot, why is this happening? Is it me? Is it my connection?
Whatever the hell that means. But like basically, it was a space where we could
Oh, hold up.
safely
Hold
make
up.
a very clear. Oh, am I still going out?
Yeah, you're still going out. I missed like the last
It
five
may not
ten
have the best
seconds.
service. Can you hear me still?
Kind of, but I'm still worried about it like going in and out. Shoot.
Are you
Um,
able to hear me?
no, it's getting worse. No. Okay. What we can do, because this is like killing me. Well, it's not killing me, but it's like it's sort of um
Now?
um
Can you,
kind kind of you keep freezing.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello? Okay, okay. Whew. Okay. Um, I'm not really sure what's going on. I don't know because I have not moved, and so I don't know like why it's happening. But did you get what I said, or what did you last hear?
I mean it kept going in and out. I kept getting different, like I heard resources, I heard grants, I heard ill distribution of resources. I'm missing a lot. What you're saying is very important. I want to make sure I get it down. I'm missing a lot of it though. It keeps going in and out. Um
Okay.
uh for the sake of, let's just say, audio quality or something like that,
Mhm.
would you maybe want to schedule like a part two and
Oh
then
yeah, for sure,
okay.
absolutely. I feel like
Okay.
then I would definitely be able to be in a place that would have better Wi-Fi, and I could not have to like be on my charger. So yeah, we can definitely do it again.
Okay, or like you're in front of a computer and relaxed and not sitting in a car sweating balls off. Okay.
Yeah,
Sweating, you know what I mean? Just sweating. Yeah,
yeah.
you know what I get. Okay. Poor choice of words there. But yeah, if we could like do like schedule a part two and then, I have still have a bunch of questions to ask. So yeah, I feel like that
Okay,
would be
sure.
for the sake of the audio quality and everything. 'Cause, like I say, what you're saying is really, really important, and I want to make sure it gets recorded properly. Um,
For sure.
Okay, so should we just go and say we'll end now because we've also been talking for like 2 hours.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
that's a lengthy amount of time. So I will email you about doing a part two,
Okay.
um, and then we'll like get the Michigas figured out before that next one. Okay?
Okay. Awesome. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I was so happy to meet you. I was I'm just very excited to be a part of the project in general. So like it is just it's very cool, very
Yeah.
cool. Okay. But
Okay.
before you go, give me your Instagram handle.
Oh yeah, sure. It's so dare like a daredevil, Dare,
Okay.
and then Ree,
All
and then
right.
US. So that's not how to spell my name, of course, but it's like the phonetic spelling of it, except for like dare. So it's just dare re us.
Yep. I think I found you. All right. One thing I asked, do not judge my Instagram.
I won't judge your Instagram as long as you don't judge mine.
Mostly I could it's freaking all I never learned how to use social media. But okay. Okay, sounds good. Amazing. Following, and we will schedule a part two. Alrighty.
Okay, awesome. Oh, I got your follow. Great. I'm gonna follow you back.
Okay, wonderful. Cool.
All right. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Enjoy your afternoon.